Brent Humpherys is in the house. Welcome, Brent.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you with us. And let me remind you, if you ever have any home or finance related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you. And you can reach out to me directly at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are no operators standing by. I am it. I guess my boys are sleeping this morning. Well, they'll probably pipe in right as I start saying something else. They almost decided to pipe in on me. There we are. While I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan or plan to save you money, I personally work with you. Even if you don't have any needs today, save this number in your phone for future reference. 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And yes, of course, we are celebrating today. We celebrate every day on Ron Siegel Radio. And I tend to look at the list of items that we could celebrate. Beyond that I got up on the correct side of the sidewalk this morning. That's always a good one. National Red Rose Day. Isn't that February 14th? Yeah, we'll skip that one. National Loving Day. I think I'm getting a bit of a trend here.
This is ridiculous.
This one probably fits me a little bit better. National Jerky Day.
You're absolutely useless.
But having beaten anorexia, I will stick with National Peanut Butter Cookie Day. Yeah. I'll go for a peanut butter cookie or two. Maybe we'll figure a little more than that. I'll stop the clapping. That's enough of you guys. Checking out the markets this morning. What are we seeing in the markets are moving. So we are seeing the Dow Jones Industrial Average down 72 points. I'm going to talk about what's happening in the markets. Why is that happening? But the Dow Jones Industrial Average down 73 points now. Oil up 66 cents per barrel, 46.49. If you're thinking about traveling this week, the national average gasoline, $2.33.6 here in Taxifornia. $3 and a nickel is the average cost of a gallon of gasoline in Taxifornia. Still leading the country. It's not one that we want to be on, but we're leading that country.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, leading the country in that number there as well. Now, interest rates. The 10-year Treasury, 2.193. We are at an inflection point on that 10-year Treasury, 2.193. Now, if you are looking at a new home, the issue there, the 10-year Treasury does not have anything to do with your house. But what it really does is it does lead the way for the mortgage-backed securities. So when you're watching the 10-year Treasury, it does have a little bit of an influence on what's going on in the marketplace. So that is important to watch. I am going to suggest to you, as long as we do not close above 2.24 on that 10-year yield, 2.24. Want to stay below that 2.24. We will probably be going down to somewhere between 1.81 and 1.86 on the 10-year. Yeah, I know, if you're a senior, that hurts. But that's where we're heading on the 10-year Treasury, which then does lead us to what we're looking at for the mortgage-backed securities and your 30-year fixed-rate interest loans. That's the issue. That's why I bring that up on a regular basis on our broadcasts. So we may be seeing some interest rates going down. If you're thinking about buying a house, you've got more equity than you believe you do. We'll talk about that with Brent Humpherys in a little bit. But we do know from the statistics, most people are ill-informed about the amount of equity they have in their properties. So you need to know that information in order. How do you make an educated decision if you're not educated? It's just a personal thought right there.
I think there should be an ill-informed day about home equity. We should celebrate that and provide a solution.
Exactly. You got a good point there, Brent. Interesting thought. Well, talking about education, I love listening to this where people talk about Dr. Ben Carson and his lack of knowledge when it comes to housing. And he is our Secretary of Housing and Urban Development now. Arguably, Ben Carson is a pretty intelligent guy. Now, I don't know anybody that's going to dispute that, but if they do, they might need their head examined, and we know who to go to for that. But here's the issue is A lot of the folks that dislike or disagree with Mr. Carson or Dr. Carson, they disagree because they don't like his policy as opposed to, and nowadays, unfortunately, if you listen or read some of the life in the, I forgot what O'Reilly's new book is called, but it's a great book. It's about snowflakes and people that are just, they can't argue a point other than calling names. They say Carson's an idiot, but it's really his policies that they don't like. I would say the man's not an idiot. Maybe I like some of his policies, maybe I don't. But he's calling for $1 trillion. He's saying that there's a $1 trillion loan guarantee with the MMI, which is the mortgage insurance from Fannie Mae, from FHA, from Ginnie Mae. $1.1 trillion in outstanding loan guarantees. That could put a bit of a damper on our economy. And I know that at the end of the Obama administration, they wanted to lower the FHA mortgage insurance premiums. Well, some people think that's good. Some people think it's bad. Carson does not like it. But he's also looking to slash $6.2 billion out of the budget at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Have you ever heard of a boss saying, you know something, I think I want you to cut my budget? Not very likely, it's very rare that something like that happens. But Carson says we can reduce the bureaucracy, allowing public housing authorities to forge partnerships with private enterprise and local government authorities. The other thing that Dr. Carson emphasized, and I don't know how anybody can be opposed to this, housing counseling. He was pushing the idea that people just don't have an understanding of where our housing market is, what the documentation is required, what's required of them to own and to buy a house. And I'm going to suggest, with the more I do radio and listen and talk to people, a lot of people just don't have any idea about housing. And we're going to talk more about that as the hour progresses. But here's one that I just couldn't get past. It just drives, you love watching some of these individuals. Bernie Sanders.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, did you hear Bernie Sanders' comments over the weekend? Now, apparently, Bernie tells us he's a socialist, so he must, and now he's proving that I guess he's a bit against our Constitution and probably against one of the larger religions in the world. Bernie's saying that there is that you need to apply a religious test for an office of public interest, and says that he will be voting against, I got to find the gentleman's name, Russell Voigt. Russell Voigt. He's President Trump's nominee for Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget. And the reason that Senator Sanders says that he's voting against him is because Sanders doesn't think Christians are fit to serve in government because they're bigots. Where do you go with a comment like that? I mean, I don't think Sanders is senile, but you make a comment like that and you got to wonder, I mean, and the other part that I'm a little bit surprised by. Now, if Donald Trump had said something like that, do you think it would have led every news broadcast in America? Yet Bernie Sanders goes out and makes that kind of a comment, and all we hear is crickets. I should have a soundbite for crickets, but I don't. Unbelievable how that goes on. Yeah, moving right along. Department of Justice, apparently they've got another problem with Comey. Comey. James Comey apparently provided false testimony before the Senate Intelligence Committee, and they've got the written documentation to prove that some of his answer to Senator Kamala Harris was inaccurate and misleading. So think about that one. Wait a second, I think I was watching the news and I must be mistaken, they didn't cover that one either. So Comey gives bad information, the DOJ has to send a retraction, and there we have it. Moving right along, talking about the idea here of education in real estate. And here's I just posted this graphic, so if you're on any one of our social media channels, you can look at the graphic that I just shared.
Does that make it a graphic image?
A graphic image.
Sorry, I just couldn't help myself.
I might have missed that. I think I missed a. I'm a little slow this morning. I missed Brent's commentary there. But here's the issue. I hear people frequently asking me, are we ready for another housing bubble? And I've got a chart that I presented from the National Association of Realtors. And it talks about median existing home sales prices. And it shows on the graph the issue of the bubble and the bust. Now, people talk about the idea, and this happens over and over again. Back in 2000, when we had the dot-com bubble, or the bubble burst, constantly for the next 10 years, we heard people talking about, is there another dot-com bubble on the horizon? And people get nervous, they get worried. And that was one that was really an anomaly because we didn't have historical data to really discuss the issue. Well, when you talk about housing, we have historical data. Over decades, the median existing home sales price increases at a rate of 3.6%. Now that's a national number. Here in Taxifornia, our prices go up a little bit more than the national average, but 3.6. So if you look at the chart that I shared this morning, it shows that in 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, that we had housing going up at more than that 3.6% rate. But then in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, prices came down rather dramatically. But what would happen if we added a 3.6 appreciation rate from the year 2000 all the way through today? What would that graph look like? Well, if you look at the numbers, we're actually a little bit lower than our historical norm, even though we had that massive increase in the early part or middle part of 2000s, and then we had the drastic decrease, the bubble and the bust. So if you were to take those completely out and say they never happened, prices would be just about where they are today. Maybe not, we're actually, they would be a little bit higher than they are today. So my point here is be aware that we're not looking at another bubble. We're not looking at building up prices going up because prices are going up. That's not what's happening in our marketplace today. And I like the idea of sharing that chart with you so you have the exact numbers there. That way if you're contemplating this issue, prices are still going up at 3.6% every year and have been for decades. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate current events and the financial markets. When we come back, boy, do we have a lot to chat about. Should you use an attorney to document your real estate transaction instead of using a real estate professional? What do you think Brent Humpherys' idea is going to be on that one? But he's going to give you an unbiased education then, and I might even have to challenge him on a couple things here and there if we find a need for it. That's what we do here on Ron Siegel Radio. Reasons to buy a home this summer, what to know about applying for a mortgage. Take the money stress out of a vacation with a checklist that we're going to give you today. So we've got a lot to cover. Boy, and we're going to get on with it. You can reach us anytime. Our off-air number, 800-306-1990. 800-306-1990 or RonSiegelRadio.com. Connect with us, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio, on Twitter @Ron Siegel. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Are you needing to secure 10+% on your investment? Credit score over 800. Are you living in the home of your dreams or sit where you think you can afford? If the answer to any of these questions is no, you doing about it. Text ATP to 79564. Complete a 3-minute complimentary survey, and the area trust professionals, Ron Siegel Radio, will reach out to you to develop a success strategy for you. Again, all you need to do is text ATP 79564.
What if your family business could help grow the less fortunate family? Your restaurant could truly hungry people. What if you could help to comfort the lonely? Plant sustainable resources where nothing has ever before. Make a child's lifelong wish true. What if all you have to do is simply do nothing more than what your business already does every day? We do it. Introducing Processing for a Cause, a unique program that turns a percentage of your business's credit card volume into ongoing donation dollars to nonprofit organizations. Simply switch your credit card processing provider to Processing for a Cause and begin supporting a world cause today. The process is simple, and the cause will change lives forever. Processing for a Cause.
You a veteran? Own a home? Money? Siegel Lending Team is here to help veterans finance and get the money they need. The VA 100 lets you borrow up to 100% of your home value, refinance your mortgages, consolidate credit cards, and lower your payments by an average of $7 a month. And the Siegel Lending Team knows character means more than a credit score. 800-306-99. That's 800-306-99. Change notice licensed by the California Department of Corporations, NMLS 2103, and number 0186952.
Are you a veteran, police officer, firefighter, doctor, nurse, or teacher? If you qualify as one of Ron Siegel's VIP heroes, and we have rewards up to $5,000 or $10,000, buy, sell, or refinance a home with one of Ron Siegel radio partners. As one of the heroes, real estate agents will pay part of their commission. Lending partners will give a credit at closing. Title company, special published dates, and many other service providers have incentives too. All you need to do is Ron Siegel Radio, 1-800-306-1990. That's 1-800-306-1990. Or visit VIPHeroProgram.com. Just think about what you will do with all the rebates and from the partners of radio. Just call us 800-326-1990. We can show you our appreciation for your service.
We're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That's my message, and as your consumer advocate, I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio. Or anytime at 800-306-1990. 800-306-1990. The real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by the area trusted real estate professionals of Ron Siegel Radio. Text NEST, N-E-S-T, to 79564. You just put in some parameters of what you're looking for, and every time a new home in your parameters comes on the market, you're going to get a text message directly from our friends, and it's going to let you know that that property is there. It'll give you a link to a property website. Great information. So what are some reasons that you may want to consider buying a house this summer? And here are 4 great reasons to consider buying a home today instead of waiting. Number 1, prices are continuing to rise. CoreLogic's latest home price index reports that home prices have appreciated by 7.1% over the last 12 months. The same report predicts that prices will continue to increase at a rate of 4.9% over the next year. The bottom in home prices has come and gone. Home values will continue to appreciate for years. Waiting no longer makes sense. Mortgage interest rates are projected to increase. Freddie Mac's primary mortgage market survey shows that interest rates for a 30-year mortgage have remained around 4%. Most experts predict that they will begin to rise over the next 12 months. Mortgage Bankers Association, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, National Association of Realtors are in unison projecting that rates will increase by this time next year, and increased in rates will impact your monthly mortgage payment. A year from now, your housing expense will increase if a mortgage is necessary to buy your next home. Either way, you're paying a mortgage. There are some renters who have not yet purchased a home because they're uncomfortable taking on the obligation of a mortgage. Everyone should realize that unless you're living with your parents rent-free, you are paying a mortgage, either yours or your landlord's. As an owner, your mortgage payment is a form of forced savings that allows you to have equity in your home that you can tap into later in life. As a renter, you guarantee your landlord is the person with that equity. Are you ready to put your housing cost to work for you? Number 4, it's time to move on with your life. The cost of a home is determined by 2 major components, the price of the home and the current mortgage rate. it appears that both are on the rise. What if they weren't? Would you wait? Look at the actual reason you're just buying and decide if it's worth it. Whether you want to have a great place for your children to grow up, you want your family to be safer, or you just want to have control over renovations, maybe now is the time to buy. Give me a call at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. I will put you in touch with a great real estate professional in your neighborhood. But here's the concept. We want to make sure that we're doing that after you have already got that fast pass loan approval, so that maybe your real estate professional can check box J4 on the residential purchase agreement. That is the Real-Time Real Estate segment, again brought to you by the area trusted real estate professionals of Ron Siegel Radio. Text NEST, N-E-S-T, to 79564. As we are pretty fortunate that we get some time with Brent Humpherys on radio here. Well, usually, what about once a month we get you to come and visit us and bring us. Here's the beauty of Brent coming on, and no, it's not. Brent is not the beauty.
That's clear. Yeah.
The content is what is the beauty.
It's fun content.
Fun content. So here's what I really enjoy is when Brent comes up. Generally, what we're chatting about is something that's going on in real life. It's not a hypothetical. It's not sometimes I guess it could be a textbook case, but it's really the ideas of what's going on out in the marketplace as opposed to, theories and philosophies. These are real life examples. And I think when we talk about what's going on in real life, people can relate to that. Mm-hmm. So your comment this morning, the idea was, and this is really, even though our broadcast is worldwide, it really applies to a specific group of states, because in many states they are attorney-based states, sure, whereas the content we're talking about today is where you're in a realtor-based state. And I think even maybe the attorney-based is really more the escrow portion of it than it is.
That's correct.
Anything else. It's not the sales part.
This will apply nationwide.
Okay, so let's get on with it.
Not to be overconfident. This will apply nationwide.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I mean, Ron, you were correct. There are many states that instead of using an escrow company or title company, they'll use attorneys. And this discussion is not anti-attorney. I am very pro-attorney. I know many attorneys, and I was recently looking at how many people are replaying your show, and I think like last year was 4.5 million or something, and you're trending at a little over 7 million. So obviously it's statistically very likely that there are a number of attorneys that are listening.
Sure.
And I routinely, in my course of business, refer buyers and sellers to competent legal counsel. So this Absolutely. Is not about whether attorneys are worth it. This is about the specific instance when a seller, looking at the price they think their home is worth and looking at what they imagine they'd pay for a real estate commission, the idea of avoiding the real estate industry, circumventing it, and having an attorney simply drop the paperwork. And whether that notion really makes sense, holds weight, and whether a seller who has an attorney just draw it up for a flat fee is really saving the money, which is, I think, the only reason you'd want to have an attorney draw it up is to save a real estate commission.
Sure.
My premise is that if you are paying that real estate commission anyhow somewhere else in the transaction, it would make sense to have professional real estate representation. Because in my opinion, and for all the attorneys listening, I know I can say "in my opinion," comma, and be perfectly fine.
Absolutely.
From litigation. In my opinion, in most instances, it does not make sense to circumvent the real estate agent and simply have an attorney draw it up. And there are 7 key reasons I believe that.
Well, and one of them, I'm trying to find the graphic, because I know we've done this, we've talked about this in the past, Brent, but I know that there's been some articles, and I'm trying to find one of them that we actually did a posting on this, was one of the big issues is that people just don't know the value of their home. You had mentioned that in the lead-in on this, is that, if you believe you've got the value in there and know what the issue, I think even the latest numbers, I've seen many that people just don't know what their value of their property is.
They don't. And what's interesting is that if they don't know the value of their property, and let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, Ron, that they do know the value of the property.
Right.
And the buyer is not paying cash. They weren't in Sun City winning the $449 million Powerball over the weekend, right?
Right.
So the buyer's getting a loan who's going to be showing up pretty soon? The lender's appraiser.
Sure.
And the appraiser's first call is to the listing agent. If there's not a listing agent, who do you think they're calling? They're calling the seller, so it's going to look like for sale by owner, or they're going to call the attorney. And so all of a sudden, all of the credibility of a competent, licensed real estate broker or agent is gone. It's out of the equation. And so the appraiser is already on notice. I wonder where they got this price. Did they call Aunt Sally? Where did they get it?
And many times we don't want to say what part of the anatomy that might have come from, right? I mean, because many people just don't have a clue. Now, I'm going to be sharing another chart that we have here. We'll probably send it out in the next couple of days, but people don't have an idea of what their valuations are. Now, I'm looking at the chart right now. The appraiser's home value opinions compared to homeowners' estimates.
That's a chart that's worth looking at.
Right, and Quicken Loans does this on a regular basis. They're about 2% difference just when it goes to contract. Now, this is contract price to appraised price.
Wow.
So it's 1.9% and growing is the disparity. Now, think about that on a $500,000 house. 2% is what, 10 grand?
10,000. Mm-hmm.
Now, if you don't have a plan for dealing with that 10,000, your transaction might have just blown up completely.
And if you don't have a passionate advocate representing your fiduciary needs, right. Then who's going to fight for you to see who absorbs that 2,000? Or that 2%.
Yeah, 2%, exactly. And I just think I found the one of the charts that shows us that, well, this is the wrong one. I'll find it during the break. There's a chart that basically tells us that about 70% of Americans have the wrong, or homeowners, have the wrong impression of their property's value. So I'll find that chart and share that information with you. You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, what to know about applying for a mortgage and take the money stress out of your upcoming vacation. We'll talk about all that. And we're going to continue our conversation with Brent Humpherys when we come back. You can reach us anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com. Connect with us, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio, on Twitter at Ron Siegel. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Siegel Lending Team offers you power. That's it. Afford a monthly mortgage payment and principal interest around $900. With his rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage, 0.75%, APR 0.5%, that payment could support a $116,000 mortgage. But if you wait and rate up to around 0.5%, which is roughly the average mortgage rate over the past 30 years, that same $1,900 mortgage payment, including principal and interest, will support a $315,000 mortgage. For $100,000 worth of home, you're missing out. That's buying power. All you need to do to get started is reach out to the Siegel Lending Team at 800-306-990. That's 800-306-990. Or visit SiegelLendingTeam.com. That's SIEGELLendingTeam.com. Full excludes taxes and insurance. Call us for full details. 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-90 or SiegelLending.com. We'll have a lender since under NMLS number 1037.
Is your credit score over 800? Are you living in the home of your dreams, or simply where you think you can afford? Are you earning a safe, secure +% return on your investments? If the answer to any of these questions is no, what are you doing about it? Text TB to 79564. Complete a 3-minute complimentary survey, and the area professionals of Ron Siegel Radio will reach out to you to develop a success strategy for you. Again, all you need to do is text AP to 79564.
You own a luxury home? You're like Sanders. Your home is your largest asset, and the mortgage is your largest debt. The Siegel Lending Team has some amazing opportunities right now. Jumbo, $1 million, 30 years, 4%. 10-year rates near 3.5%. And if you can believe it, 7-inch only hybrids in low 3s. Siegel Lending Team, all the options for your jumbo or second home loan requirements. Take advantage of them while you can. To learn more about all the other financing products available from the Siegel Lending Team, call 1-800-306-1990. That's 1-800-306-1990. Or visit SiegelLendingTeam.com. That's SIEGEL LendingTeam.com. Again, call 1-800-306-1990. subject to change without notice. Licensed by NMLS ID 21707 and 145 Eagle Housing Lender.
Do you own real estate or assets over $150,000? Do you know one of your heirs will be the bank and the IRS? If you have a living trust, you will go through probate. Call Heritage Financial Services toll free at 1-855-434-7400. Check us on Heritage Financial Service in Lake Forest, California. That's 1-855-434-7400. Again, 1-855-434-7400.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That's my message, and as your consumer advocate, I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. In the Mortgage Minute today, being brought to you by Gold Star Mortgage. When you're ready for that next mortgage, either the basic mortgages, VA, FHA, USDA, conventional, conforming, jumbo, Gold Star has them. But what about the non-conventional, asset depletion, hypothecation? Maybe even need a private money loan because there's been some sort of an issue where you don't even want to document all your information. Well, Gold Star has those programs, those products as well. Give me a call, 800-306-1990. We'll get you into the proper product for your situation. So this morning we're going to talk about what to know about applying for a mortgage. I love listening to the news when you hear these folks talking who have an agenda. And they're talking about how difficult it is to get a mortgage nowadays. And I kind of chuckle when they talk about it because I'm wondering how many of them have applied for a mortgage recently? How many of them know what they're talking about? And did they use a mortgage banker or did they go to the big bank on the corner? And I have nothing against the big banks on the corner. I've got friends at nearly not every branch, but every one of those big banks. Here's the issue that you need to be aware of when you're talking about applying for a mortgage. Number one, the mortgage banker, not the bank, not the depository bank, but the mortgage banker is like your personal shopper. Now, they'd only make money if you're successful in getting the loan that you want. So they have an incentive to make sure you get what you're needing. Some of them do it in a more professional manner. Some of them do it in a haphazard manner. Some of them look to try and educate. Some of them just want to cherry pick. Those are all facts of life. But here's the issue: there's plenty of money out there right now. There is absolutely plenty of money out there for any kind of a loan that you want to get. But you've got to do your homework up front. You've got to understand what your needs are. Talk to the mortgage banker. Get a checklist. If they don't have a checklist of documents for you, then you might want to wonder why. It's so much easier and more efficient if you do everything with a checklist. So get that checklist of all the different documents that are needed. That would be your bank statements, your pay stubs, your W-2s, your tax returns. If you've gone through a bankruptcy, those documents. If you've gone through a divorce, those documents. All of the documents that are needed. They'll give them to you at one shot. If you provide them back to them at one shot, it becomes nice and simple for you to get everything moving. You're not going and having to say, well, can you give me your W-2 for 2015? Oh, you bring that one, and then they say, well, I need your W-2 for 2016. Frustrating as heck for a borrower, for anybody. So get that checklist. Apply for the mortgage. Get the Fast Pass pre-approval. That's not a pre-qualification. That's not a pre-approval. The Fast Pass approval basically says the underwriter's already looked at your file and you are approved. You just have to put in an address and you have to get the title report. You're done. So if you do some of that work up front, and I would argue, and I'm going to ask Brent this in a minute, but in many, many instances, the least enjoyable part of any real estate transaction, you've gone out and you've shopped, and that can be kind of frustrating, but once you and your real estate professional have got into contract, you're excited, you found a new house, you're looking forward to moving in, and then if you have to start with all of the lending stuff, it's like a downer, it's a buzzkill. And then when you get the keys, it's kind of exciting again, but you've gone through 30 days of buzzkill. Let's get rid of that part. Let's change the paradigm of the industry and make it so that you keep that buzz all the way through till the real estate professional gives you the keys and you open a nice bottle of wine or bottle of champagne or whatever your favorite preference is at that new property. That is the Mortgage Minute, again, brought to you by Gold Star Mortgage. Brent, what do you think? I mean, and I know that you're the real estate professional, and I do a little bit of lending here and there.
Just a little bit.
But, sometimes that lending process and all the underwriting guidelines can be a bit of a buzzkill.
They can, and that's why buyers need to do it up front before they even get out with the agent. Because in a market that's moving very, very quickly, I listed a property a couple weeks ago, had 11 offers over the weekend, the first 3 days on the market.
Right.
And we went thousands above the asking price, and the asking price was probably 20,000 above the comps already. You got to have that letter, that pre-approval with all the milestones you've been through with underwriting, with the tax returns and the pay stubs and the bank statements and the credit report and all the inquiries and letters of explanation and all that up front, because then you're farther along than the other buyers. It's not always price.
Right.
It's the buyer's ability to perform.
And you've talked about that many times on our broadcast, that if you don't find out what the seller's needs are, how can you meet them?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like marriage.
Exactly. We're lucky that probably neither one of our wives are listening today. They both know us too well.
Yeah.
So let's go back to our conversation. Using a real estate agent as opposed to just going straight on in there with, or going right to an attorney and getting the information. And I found that one of the graphics that we've shared before, talking about that like 70% of the people don't realize they've got significant equity. And they define significant equity as over 20%.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're going out there and just saying, oh, yes, Brent, you and I have talked about this before, the idea of somebody selling their house without using a real estate agent for sale by owner.
Right.
And I think the last number I saw was $234,000 with an agent, $185,000 without an agent.
I saw
those
240 and 180. Yeah, those are about the right numbers.
Right.
About 22% different.
22%.
22%.
Now,
and that's not fake news, by the way.
Right. And that's national numbers from the National Association of Realtors. So say the number that we can carry forward is 22%. And then apply it to median home prices in San Diego, probably somewhere around $470, something like that. I don't have it in front of me.
It's more than that now.
But let's call it 500 because I can do math easier that way.
Beautiful.
That comes to about $110,000.
Yeah.
Right. So let's go to the attorney so we can save, a dollar.
Yeah.
Or we think we can save a dollar.
Yeah. Again, attorneys are our friends.
Right.
Very, very helpful. I mean, there are times when
they're
you need
needed.
an attorney. If there's a short sale, if there's a spouse that's uncooperative and one wants to sell and one doesn't, if there's certain, liens or what have you on a property, or you need to clean up or perfect title, then attorneys can be very beneficial. But the notion of just avoiding a real estate commission because going with an attorney will make you more money, i.e. save you more money, in my opinion, is really, really flawed. Take, for instance...
So let me ask you one quick question.
Yeah.
Have you ever sold a house for an attorney?
I have.
Have you ever sold a house to an attorney?
I have.
And they both used a realtor?
Yes, one represented himself.
But my point is, real estate, most attorneys realize that it's the old real estate, or the old legal claim, right? The attorney who has himself as a client has a fool for a client, or attorney who represents himself as a fool for a client.
Yeah.
Right? Same concept. The attorneys, I mean, I would submit every residential purchase agreement that the original template was drafted probably by an attorney.
Yeah.
Right? But then they send it back to the agents because they really know the market and they know property.
Sure.
Right?
Attorneys can do a great job with the paperwork. But
Absolutely.
Let's just pretend you have a $500,000 home.
Okay.
And a seller says, I could go out and hire an agent at 6%, which would be split equally, 3% to the listing side, 3% to the buyer's agent. Okay. So on $500,000, if I could go get an attorney, I could save a $30,000 commission. So they find a buyer themselves, if they can do it. And now in their mind, they're thinking, I have a $500,000 offer is really $530,000 to me as the seller.
Sure, the net.
Because I'm saving 30.
That net, right.
So what's the first question that a buyer's going to ask? Are you paying a commission? And when the seller says no, all of a sudden they now want to save that $30,000.
Sure.
And so now the $500,000 is now $470,000. So you've got this inherent conflict that when you...
And that's only for the people that are smart enough to figure out 6%, because there's people that are simple like me that would say, okay, it's a $500,000, no commission, I can probably go down to $450,000.
Sure.
Because 10% is easy math.
Right. So circumventing a real estate agent in a transaction results immediately in an argument over who's going to pocket the savings.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two, look at the appraisal. Unless you've won the lottery, right, the buyer's going to be getting a loan, and the lender is going to call an appraiser, and an appraiser is going to call. And as soon as the appraiser calls the listing agent and finds out it's not a listing agent, it's an attorney or for sale by owner, what's going to happen? All of the credibility with the supported real estate industry and background and experience is out of the equation.
Sure.
And so there's automatically this first impression of, I wonder how that price was set. We mentioned that before the break. My apologies. The next
Which is important.
Yeah.
Because the appraisers nowadays, there's a lot of responsibility from the government that's put on the appraiser's shoulders. Mm-hmm. So if they see that the pricing was done or the transaction was negotiated between real estate professionals, they're going to look at it and say, okay, I've got a professional here, I got a professional there, they've come together, they've put together a price. Now if I can put together my price and it's in the ballpark, now we've got three people who are credible, as opposed to an appraiser that if it's not a real estate professional, he's got to really dig deeper.
Correct.
To really substantiate every number that he puts down, because now it's only him against the world as opposed to him and two others against the world.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point. And what happens though on a $500,000 deal if the appraisal comes in at $450,000? We'll just use your simple number.
Right.
The first thing the buyer is going to want to do, because I've seen them do it dozens of times, is say, seller, I want $450,000. Who wants to pay more than appraised value? Now, who's in the seller's corner fighting for them to get that appraisal up?
Right.
And how will you combat the appraisal? By filling out documents to provide other comps. Most attorneys don't have access to the multiple listing service. They've got Zillow and Trulia and Redfin and some scant details on transactions and maybe a few interior photos. But what about the concessions, the private transfers of money, but they're not getting paid for that. They're only getting paid to document a file. Correct. And say $400 an hour. That you can, if you want them to start doing homework on property valuations at $400 an hour, they're starting from zero to get up to 55 miles an hour, as opposed to a real estate professional who's already at 54 miles an hour. They just need to find that neighborhood. Sure. And one of my points, too, is when sellers think they can just pay an attorney hourly, and maybe they think I'm making this number up, 10 hours of work, let's just say, right? Sure. Are they really thinking about the fact that attorney who's documenting the transaction and just passing paperwork is not going to be receiving calls from the buyer who has concerns on requests for repairs, other negotiation, personal property transfer, and appraisal issues? Last I heard, there was like 37 different inspections for a property. Yep, according to the buyer's inspection elections in California Association of Realtors. That's correct. 37. Okay. And if every one of those took 15 minutes for the attorney to deal with, I don't know what that's about 9 hours, right? Build in 10-minute increments. Yeah, it'd really be 20 minutes. Right. Times 37. Exactly. So it's significant numbers. We're going to talk more with Brent Humpherys about this when we come back. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate current events and the financial markets. We'll also talk about money, stress, and vacations. Nobody has stresses over a vacation. You can reach us anytime off air. Number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com. Connect with us, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio, and on Twitter @Ron Siegel. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Are you living in the home of your dreams or simply where you think you can afford? Are you earning a safe, secure 10+% return on your investments? Is your credit score over 800? If the answer to any of these questions is no, what are you doing about it? Text ATP to 79564. Complete a 3-minute complimentary survey, and the trusted professionals of Ron Siegel Radio will reach out to you to develop a success strategy for you. Again, all you need to do is ATP to 79564.
You found out the truth about FHA insured home equity conversion? No, it's not your grandfather's reverse mortgage. This just may be the finest financial planning strategy available for all homeowners of retirement age. Helping protect what you've earned is the job of your board of directors with continued education. Your research has shown using a HECM will significantly enhance the success rate of a retiree's portfolio and legacy. Please allow us to educate. For your complimentary consultation, call Kaplan at 949-300-3855. That's 949-300-3855.
Are you currently renting a home? Do you like paying someone else's mortgage payment? Why not explore the options to purchase your own home? home. Can you imagine a 30-year fixed rate of 4.25% APR? This means $10,500. You can purchase a $295,000 home and have a principal and interest payment of about $1,400 per month. What are you paying? Your family deserve the opportunity to take advantage of the current market. To learn more about exciting opportunities, Siegel Lending Team is standing by to speak with you. Call now, 1-800-306-1990. It's 1-800-306-1990. Visit SiegelLending.com. SIEEES lendingteam.com or 1-800-06-1990. Rate subject without notice. Licensed by NMSID 21037 and 145502. Equal housing fair. Not endorsed. Sponsored by any government agency.
Do you have a goal of mortgage-free ownership? What if your home was valued at $500,000? Aware free and clear home could be costing you $2,500 every month, $30,000 per year. Mortgage planners at the Siegel Lending Team would like to show you how you can own your home, generate free income, and accumulate family wealth. You simply call the Ron Siegel team at 1-800-306-1990. Is 1-800-306-1990. By sending the team a copy of your most recent mortgage statement, the team will send you a no-obligation real estate plan. You be the judge if this is for your family. Again, all you have to do is send the team a copy of your mortgage statement by email to reap@ronsiegelradio.com or call today. Ron 1-800-306-1990. That is 1-800-306-1990.
Rate subject to change and without notice. By the California DOC and BRMLS 2177-1552 and CARE 01-869-452-6675.
We're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That's my message, and as your consumer advocate, I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Word on Wealth segment today being brought to you by AskAboutReverseMortgages.com. Yes, indeed, you can purchase a new home with a reverse mortgage. Now, the only person that does not or should not consider a reverse mortgage, I'm trying to think of one. Yeah, I can't figure that out because it protects the equity position in your property, saves you taxes, might even address some issues or benefits with Social Security, and gives you an optional mortgage payment and actual liquidity. So why wouldn't you want that? Just a thought right there. Take this money stress out of vacation. Here's a checklist for you. I'm going to go through it rather quickly because I want to get back to our conversation with Brent Humpherys. Number one, make a budget. So we're taking the stress out of a vacation with this travel checklist. Number one, make a budget. Number two, make a packing list. God, I wish I can get my wife to do this one. That way you kind of cut down on the amount of stuff you're bringing. Bring the right credit card. You have to understand, do you know which is the right card? If you're going out of the country, have you checked on the fees for the monetary exchange rate? Call the credit card company. Let them know you're going out of the country so that you don't have issues there. Make sure you're covered. Health insurance plans don't cover medical expenses while you're abroad, so you might want to deal with that one in advance. Cover your bills in advance. Hold your mail. Wait to change money. Get your passport well ahead of time. Might save you a little bit of stress on all of that. That is the Word on Wealth segment, again, brought to you by AskAboutReverseMortgages.com. Only for the people that want to minimize their tax liability or maybe even manage their taxes. Just a thought for you. That's the Word on Wealth. So we are chatting this morning. Brent Humpherys is in the house. We're talking about you can't see me if you're on radio, but the concept of, I don't know if I should, I'm just going to throw it out there, Brent. People that are really cheap. Now, the idea of saying, I don't want to pay the real estate professional their commission, so I'm going to be a cheapo, and I'm going to go to an attorney and let them document the transaction, hope that it's done correctly, because attorneys do great at what they do, and I don't disparage attorneys at all. I have quite a few friends that are attorneys. I have attorneys on the broadcast all the time. If you're a regular listener, you know that. So I have nothing, and I have relatives that are attorneys. So all of that being said, I have nothing against attorneys. But my concept, Brent, is, I lead a lending team, right? I have a real estate license. I've never used my real estate license, but I needed it for lending at one point in time. If somebody calls me and wants to know valuations of real estate, or where should the sign go in the front yard or the backyard, right? I say, something, call Brent Humpherys. He's in your area. He's the one, right? I stay in my lane because I can't know everything about everything. Right. I know a little bit. I can say, I know enough to call a professional.
Sure.
Right? I think most attorneys are the same thing. They want to stay in their lane. If you call a divorce attorney and say, I just shot somebody, they're probably going to say, I'm probably not the right attorney for you.
Yeah.
Right? So when it comes to valuations of real estate, or doing all these inspections, or dealing with the appraiser,
right?
A real estate an attorney probably doesn't know the documentation that's needed to justify a listing price,
or maybe the inner workings on how to combat an appraisal. So if an appraisal comes in low,
right,
the attorney know the process. Do you call the lender? Do you call the appraiser? Is there a form to fill out? Where do I get the comps? How do I determine the inside transfers of money and concessions and unique financing variables associated with the market comparables that the appraiser put in her appraisal, and argue which ones are correct and not when I don't have access to the multiple listing service?
Absolutely. And you brought that up, and it really hit home. One of the things that I find with a lot of attorneys is they are excellent at the law, but they don't understand the reality of real estate. And I'll give you a perfect example. The law basically says that if in a divorce, that one party or the other is responsible for the mortgage, right? As a lender, the underwriters say, well, if both names are on the mortgage, you're both responsible. Even though the divorce decree says one thing, the lender puts what's called an overlay on top,
right,
and says, something, the attorney is right, I'm sure, but we don't want to be litigating it.
Right.
We don't want to be involved. As a real estate professional, you know those things.
Correct.
Right? So you can go and say, okay, yeah, your lawyer's right, but...
Yeah.
And those are some of the areas that just helps in moving it along. So are you really, if you end up losing that property or losing the earnest money deposit?
That would be rough. Yeah. And you mentioned the 37 inspections, right?
Right.
So if it's an average of 15 minutes of the attorney's time for each of the 37, let's talk about what to do when you find something in an inspection. I mean, in California, properties are bought as is. And seller is under no obligation to respond to a request for repairs. But I have never met a seller who when happy with the listing price or the contract price, didn't agree to certain repairs. Here's a secret. Maybe it's not a secret, but I've seen it.
It's just you and me, Brent. Go ahead.
It's just us.
Just us.
No
one's listening.
600,000 replay listeners per month. Yeah, it's just us. Buyers will often make a price or offer a price, get it accepted, and then have the guy with the hard hat and the mag light, the physical inspector, come through, do a 70, 80-page report, and exhaust the seller. I mean, literally, just make them weak in the knees over all of the repairs they need. So what does the seller often do after they get this exhausting 2 or 3 page repair list? They say, all right, what do I need to pay to make this pain go away? And maybe they'll credit $7,500 or even $10,000. I've seen it a lot.
Sure.
Or, God forbid, the price reduction. Hey, Bob and Sally had no idea the property had mold. That $500 is now $475 because it's going to cost us $11 to remediate. And this black cloud, no pun intended, on the property. When we go to resell, we have to disclose it had mold. We really think it's worth $475. Suddenly, that seller's lost $25,000 of the $30,000
sure,
that they expected they'd save. A realtor knows how to address that and how to, basically play chicken. We're going to put the property back on the market. We're not going to do it.
And every realtor that I know, the real good ones, not every realtor, I should say, the real good realtors that I know understand that these hiccups are coming.
Oh, you better believe it.
You know when you sell a property that's at the very top of the market, you can forecast, okay, I'm going to have to deal with an appraiser, I'm going to have to deal with whatever, and I don't know those things because that's not my lane. Right, but you know those things because you've been doing it so many times.
Yeah.
The attorneys don't necessarily know that because it's out of their lane.
Sure. And we have specific documents that jog a seller's memory with regards to certain reports and certain things they need to remember. All the time. I mean, if I did a search in my Gmail right now for the word forgot, I'd have hundreds of links where sellers said, oh my gosh, forgive me, I forgot.
Right.
The reason they are remembering is because realtors have very good forms that ask them a gazillion questions that remind the seller about Melleroos and bonds and things that if they don't disclose, very likely they will be with an attorney because
for the wrong reasons.
For the wrong reason, they're going to be defended.
Absolutely, as opposed to being the one there because that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Great information as always, and we ask you to set that first radio preset button to come back here every day to join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. A big thanks to John, who's engineering us today, and of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime. 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, my motto, make a lot of money, help a lot of people, have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.